And good morning. Welcome to the old school. We're alive. It's been a month. I know some of you were placing your bets. You probably saw a picture of me walking across a crosswalk without shoes on. You just assumed I was dead. But no, we're here to talk about the American education system, all of its traits, its qualities, its quirks, its foibles, as Dr. Bourgeois is prone to say. And possible solutions insofar as we know the solutions. Good morning here, Dr. Bourgeois.
Oh, Mr. Miller, that was a snappy introduction. And
I've been saving it up for the last month.
I think you've been resting for the last month, and you're full of energy. And I'm a little step behind you in my energy level, but it's good to be back. And
we're about to change that.
We're about to change what?
We're about to change your level of energy, your vim and vigor, as they say.
I do need to work on that. I project doom and gloom occasionally. I've been want to do that.
I don't want you thinking about doom and gloom right now, because in less than, roughly 24 hours from now, we will be on a plane, you and I, headed for Europe, in particular, Germany, Frankfurt, to be precise. And I need you to be thinking positive. Okay.
Positive about going to Germany. We've been there a few times.
We have been there a few times, but I'm just saying, no one likes someone getting onto a plane thinking of doom and gloom. It's just keep it light, keep it airy, keep it breezy, keep it positive. Do you have your passport?
Yeah, I have that. I kind of came right under the wire. That was a little dicey because my passport ran out, and we were going to travel before COVID, and it didn't happen, and I forgot everything. So it was one of those moments, 5 to 7 weeks, but they over delivered. So I do have a passport.
A rare moment of oversight or a lack of oversight on your part led you to be in arrears in regards to your passport.
I think so, but that's the only time that'll ever happen.
You had this whole next 2 weeks planned out. Are we good?
No, I'm actually getting clothing today, so I'm doing some clothing shopping and buying.
Lederhosen?
Not in Lederhosen, that would be silly. I'm buying gifts, which I said.
I've already gotten one request, and get this. So I tell the guy I'm going to Germany. His one request is that I stop off at the duty-free shop on the way back and pick up Cuban rum.
For somebody here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
but I'm going to Germany. We are going to Germany.
And so you're going to honor that request?
I might, if for no other reason, but for me to pick up a bottle of it to try it out. And so got to try it, right?
Yeah, might as well. It'll be a great trip. And I think we've planned to do our podcast remote, maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and see how we can translate, as it were.
Let's just hope that the situation in these various rooms that we're going to be staying in is kosher. I'm just saying.
Fucking kosher in Germany? What do you mean exactly?
I'm talking, because when you ask for a room with 2 beds, they'll give you 2 beds, but they tend to be smushed together.
Oh.
And so I went through great pain to make sure there's no smushing together of beds. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying I like my own space. I think you like your own space.
I do. So Herr Miller has arranged all of our accommodations, and so he'll be to blame, won't you?
I will be to blame. I'll sleep on the couch if there's ever a moment when we're confronted with 2 beds smushed together. Okay. I'll take the couch.
Well, I have it on record publicly now, so I can call on the tapes of this.
I have the younger back. I have the more screwed up back, but I have the younger back of the 2 of us. So perhaps I can. No pun intended. I can stomach.
I disagree with that. I've been to whatever you call those bone type doctors where they give you x-rays, and they said I had the back of a 25-year-old. What do you know? Those are his words.
That's true. You're starting to sound a little bit like our former president, I've got the best back in the entire world.
Those are actually his words.
Doctor said it's the best back he's ever seen.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today beyond our travels? Because I think that we should connect what we're doing to education next week when we talk, but maybe we have something to tee it off now that's a little bit different.
Well, I think, first of all, just simply getting back on the radar for those who may be slowly dropping off the old school train because there hasn't been an episode lately. But simply to maybe tie in the idea of travel from an educational point of view.
Okay.
And
so you want to talk about that now and why it's beneficial to travel.
And it's possible that while we're in Germany, we may have cause to talk a little bit about the German system, a little bit about the systems in which we are surrounded when we're there. But given that you and I have a combined amount of, say, 40 some odd years leading students to various locales, you primarily Germany, although you have taken a couple of swims through Hungary, have you not?
Been to Hungary and Austria and Germany and other places I won't share with you.
But I've been to Germany and Japan. And so I think...
Is there a reason why you picked those two countries specifically? Germany and Japan?
You think I should have gone ahead and gone to Italy, completed the Axis powers of World War II?
Well, you could have picked any other ones, but I bet the Japan came out of convenience and the Germany out of interest. Is that the way it worked?
Well, both, in some ways, both of them fall under both categories. Nearby city has as a sister city, a city both in Germany and one in Japan. And so therefore I had cause to and a chance to take students to both places. And so I missed out on, there is an Italian sister city that we have in this area. And there's also a Mexican sister city, which I'd have been particularly keen to go to. But alas, it was Germany and Japan. And, I think, both of us have made this a part of our calling, to use a overused religious, quasi-religious terminology, with regards to what we see as our purpose. So for you, can you talk a little bit about how you got involved and how you saw your efforts in kind of an educational paradigm? Or maybe you didn't, I don't know.
Well, it's funny, but when you and I had our first conversation when we were working at a school together, this is the first conversation we had about this very topic and our experiences. I really never had interest in taking students to Europe, to Germany. It wasn't like something I had planned about for years, but I happened to apply for a German position in Texas when I was living in Oregon. And so I was recruited in a way to take over a program that started in 1960. And so not knowing much about it, I was fortunate to have the founder of the program there. He's the teacher I replaced, and he really mentored me for 5 or 6 years, really. I mean, he's still mentoring me in a way. So he put a little context into to something that started in 1960. And you can just, what I didn't realize is that these trips are about students, but they're also about families, because we do homestays. So it's a kind of this mosaic of people who have traveled or hosted. And so we did both sides. We hosted Germans, which is interesting in itself, and then traveled, but it was never about the excursions or even getting on a bus and traveling, because we've done some of that, and quite frankly that's not that fun as a chaperone, because you're really more worried about the kids. You're stressed. I mean, even at nighttime, I don't know if you've done this, but you're walking around in hallways, patrolling, which is just stupid. So I didn't like that part, but the homestay was great, because we would go to school in the morning, and then in the afternoon we would leave the school and leave the kids, and they'd be taken care of, have a few events. But I think that the students have a unique experience when they're in a home, I think, and that would be my strongest recommendation, rather than touring. where you're literally a tourist, just happens to be a group of students. There's no comparison.
I think about, for me, it's one of those things where, and you've seen it, and I've seen it both within the exchange that we did together, but then also in our efforts with other folks. And that is the idea of how students change as a result of going over someplace and to a certain extent being on their own. To what degree have you seen that? And in what ways have you seen that from a educational, from a development point of view?
Well, for a lot of students, and I've kept in touch with them by various social media, that's still.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Social. No, I'm tech forward here, Miller. So the students, look back on that, and it's one of their more vivid memories, and it does something when you go through that, because it's by definition uncomfortable to go to an airport, with a time change and be exhausted, and then get on a train and go to some school, be welcomed, and for the students, their German was they're just getting started, really. So they have all this culture shock, and they go home, they meet a student their age, shake hands awkwardly, and sit in the back seat of a car and drive, and suddenly they're confronted with a lot of challenges to assert themselves in a new context. And I think just that builds confidence, and you see it during the trip. The confidence builds to the point where they don't need us, and they become seasoned travelers. And I think you can't get that without getting out of your comfort zone. So that, to me, is the crucial part, and also seeing what it's like in somebody else's shoes.
Think about your mentor and the fact that he was a gentleman that came out of World War II. He had fought in World War II, and one of the things I think that motivated him was the idea that between German adolescents and American adolescents, all the perceived differences were really kind of tangential differences, that at its core, the two were the same. And to be able to see that, and to see that one, because there is a great deal of similarities, there's no reason to kind of fear or to blow out of proportion the differences. And that in the process, you get to learn, as you say, you get to learn a lot more as a result of it. I use often the quote from Kipling, "What do they know of England who only England knows?" You could say that American history, for example. But if you don't know American history from someone else's perspective, I would suggest that you have a very skewed notion of American history. And Rick Steves talk about the fact that, the greatest thing you get from travel is a broader perspective, a different perspective. And I think for me, to the kids who are open to it, unfortunately, just like with any trip, you're going to have a knucklehead here and there who just sees it as a way of being away from his parents and to try to act the fool. But on the whole, we have some great kiddos that we've taken over to Germany or Japan or what have you. And if they're open to it, they realize that there's a lot more here to understand, that we are getting, when you're brought up within a particular system, you're getting one side of the story, no matter how noble the efforts of a history teacher are to include different points of view, to include different documentations or perspectives. It's hard to really see it until you're there and you see it from someone else's viewpoints. And so I think in that sense, that's probably one of the biggest benefits to the student through travel.
Well, for a chaperone, I guess, or the leader of a program, whatever, from that perspective, we have a experience ourselves, and we're also with a host family, and I've been with dozens of them in different different cities and so forth. And that you go through the same thing, you get to know them, it's stunning just how quickly you get to know people. And I think Germans might be unique, but probably not. We've met people in the former East Germany, who are the most gracious hosts I've ever had in my life. And you just connect relatively quickly because of the Germans call it Gastfreundschaft, hospitality. And so you learn about that. And then lo and behold, when the Germans come here to the United States, they experience Gastfreundschaft as well.
And, many cultures consider that one of the most basic traits of humanity is how we treat other people, and unfortunately, I think a lot of times people are keen to see how we treat other people in kind of a political sense. But I think that when you strip that away, I think you tend to find that most people are eager to find out more about other folks. And I think Americans are particularly curious. And despite what some people say about Americans in relation to other cultures, I think on the whole, Americans tend to be some of the most curious people with regards to someone that they think might be from someplace else. Now, granted, sometimes that can be based upon stereotypes or other things of that nature. However, I think the curiosity is genuine. The methodology might be a bit questionable or not necessarily dignified, but I think the curiosity is what's most important. And I've talked to folks that are living in this country, not from this country, and very seldom do you get a kind of from them, the idea that somehow people are hostile to them because they're from someplace else. There's that curiosity there. And I think Americans are use that, and that's what drives students to our programs. And that's one of the reasons why they get so much out of it. At least we've seen them get so much out of it. 4 years ago, you said that the exchange that you and I were a part of and that I am a part of still started in 1960. So 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 2019, I was in Germany. We were in the latest rotation of going to Germany. And we met, I think it was 2019, we met two ladies who were exchange partners from the original 1960 exchange.
They were partners, meaning
they were partners. Yes. And they still, on a 5-year basis, one goes to US or one goes to Germany, and they still get together. And it's one of those things that I think is, probably perhaps the most, representative of the effect of the trip or the effect of these kind of trips. Now, to what degree have you used a trip in the classroom as far as trying to achieve an end in the classroom? Or to what extent have you seen students become better in the classroom because of having an international experience, either with an exchange trip or with their family?
I think it's really motivational as a recruiting tool. I was really successful building German programs, and I was at several schools over the years. But after the first or second year, the enrollment just increased, and I was able to double enrollment in a year. And I think the exchange program has a lot to do with that. When you teach a foreign language, there's a requirement often of 2 years. Elementary German, for example, first year, second year, and then you drop off after that third year. You lose students, and then more so for fourth year. So your classes get smaller and smaller. But there's something about being involved in a program that's ongoing. So these students have 4 chances, 2 to host and 2 to travel. I think that alone, and then for everybody, even if you don't host, we bring 20, 25 students from Germany. They spend a lot of time with the students who aren't even part of the program. So they get to know them, they hang out with them, they become friends. So the friendships are not just the people in the program. So you bring a lot of prominence to the German program by doing that. You have to find other teachers to take their students in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in fact, that's how I met my wife. And we were teaching at the same school, and I needed a place for some students. And so I was able to get to know faculty members because of that, and all the logistics. But I think that the students catch the meaning when they see that group of Germans there. So it's kind of this perfect recruiting tool, and then maybe they want to get into German, maybe they want to be part of that program.
It is strange because I never knew the direct connection between the exchange and your wife and how you met your wife. Because as you know, I met my wife through the same Sister Cities program with which, I traveled to Germany twice and to Japan twice. And so a little bit of synchronicity, shall we say.
I think so. So we really are doing all this just to meet
girls.
It's a terrible.
And it worked.
It worked splendidly.
Because Lord knows you married up, and so did I.
Oh, I know that.
And so perhaps we're the real winners.
Well, there it is. And these exchange programs literally brought us together. We probably would have not even liked each other and been like enemies for years, but we connected on because of the beauty of German exchange. Here we are.
What do you think is the future of these kinds of exchanges? Do you see them becoming more popular, less so? I mean, especially as people are able or have the means to travel more on as their own family. Do you think that that's something that is going to benefit? Is it going to have the effect of encouraging people to sign up for exchanges, or is it going to lead kids to go, well, we've already been there, or we're planning on doing that with my family, so I don't need to do that with the exchange?
I think starting new programs is difficult to get the buy-in from your administration, particularly. And many districts err on the side of caution because it's an incredible risk to send students abroad or to host. I mean, and so the legal team looks at that and thinks, risk reward. And often they will err on the side of caution, meaning they'll allow the exchange program, but they won't bless it officially. So when you travel, and I've done this, it's not a school function, whereas it's just a contract between you and the parents. The school agrees to host, but they're not. It's not a sanctioned trip, and I think that's a way around it. But as far as parents, for me, it was always difficult to recruit hosts, and often the Germans did not have that problem. They had a long list of people, and they kept trying to make deals with us and say, "Can we send 2 more?" This is the daughter of the headmaster or something, right? and just 2 more. I mean, how could you deny a student? So then we, not knowing,
scramble
our side, that we were already scrambling to get the 15 or 16,
right?
And so we have to do a lot of things to recruit, and honestly, we recruited outside. I mean, you're not teaching German, you're teaching history.
Yes.
As a German teacher, my first pool of students were my own,
right?
A lot of reasons. But then, I would go outside of people in Germany, which is German classes. So it was always hard, to get enough families, and even to get enough students to go. That list changed throughout, but it was much harder for us than in Germany, where they have a waiting list. They actually turn people away. I don't remember turning a lot of people away. We did some applications, but most of the time we took students and hosts.
I think one of the talking about the idea about the degree to which it is difficult to get administrative support. Now, it does help that we're talking about Germany and not talking about, I don't know, some other place. I mean, you can imagine the places that. No. Because I'm leading somewhere with this.
Some country, and you stopped yourself.
No. Well, I'm leading into something because, as we had talked about before on this podcast, I am looking for the ability to retire. And one of the things that I wanted to do before I retire is I wanted to take a student group to Uzbekistan. And it was going to be Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan.
You just wanted the stand.
Well, I mean, not all the stands. Let's not get crazy. You know, not all stands are equal, for instance.
So,
But
so you wanted to pick places that would frighten parents.
Well, that wasn't the that wasn't the flow chart I created for myself. That wasn't the title at the top of the paper.
Well,
but what I wanted to do was I wanted to pick a place that was undervalued from a historical point of view, from a cultural point of view, certainly undervalued in regards to our history classes. Even the most inclusive history classes fail to bring in the stands, even though, you know, historians are arguing now, they've probably been arguing for years, the importance from a kind of a cultural standpoint of the Central Asian civilizations. And some suggesting that they should be a sixth river civilization that should be studied in conjunction with, you know, China, India, the Mesopotamia area, Nile River, places like that. And so for me, it was a combination of a cultural kind of thing, because of where Central Asia is, it was kind of to use an overused metaphor, it was a crossroads of cultures going back and forth to different places. And Central Asia was the location of where a lot of translations took place, of a lot of ideas were transferred, religions spread all throughout Central Asia. And of course, you have the Silk Road goes through there. You have the infrastructure that still remains in some cases of the Silk Road. So there's a lot there. However, God bless my boss, but when I first suggested the notion of taking kids to Central Asia, you would have thought I had kicked her puppy, you know, and I just, you know, the look on her face was one like, please God, you didn't just say what I thought you said. And it's not because of any attitude she had about the place. She's thinking about it from, well, she does what administrators do. She thinks about it from a question of liability, a question of risk, like you were saying earlier. And for them, any destination that ends in a stand or ends in, you know, a place like that, you're going to get some askewed glances. Now, I had a group of kiddos who, just as kind of a casual mention in class, I said, would you be interested in a trip like this? You know, I had kids that raised their hand. Okay. And those kids that raised their hand, I said, how many of your parents be into this? And then like most of the hands dropped. And so, you know, there is that you have to kind of overcome. But it is not a given, as you have said, that an exchange can easily take place. It's not all fun and games. It's not all, you know, Wiener Schnitzels and, you know, Oompa music. I mean, you have to work to make this sort of thing happen. And because it is so transformative from an educational and a personal point of view, it makes it all the more befuddling that you can get pushback on this, even if you're not going to a place that might be considered questionable, but that there is pushback.
Well, I'm sorry that program didn't make
yet.
Okay, so
not giving up the ghost just yet.
Okay,
I'm close though.
You could take one or two students who are heroic and maybe hear Dr. Bourgeois. We've talked about this, but you mentioned that it's not all fun and games. There are challenges, you know, as you know, particularly from our perspective, having to move families. That's one, because that happens when there's not a fit. You get a lot of complaints, more recently than in the early days, you know, right, where it was kind of like a marriage for life. But you get asked by the kid, you know, and then you have to make a real difficult decision, but you try to be transparent and talk to your counterparts. Right. And then we both, and together, I've had to send students back home for drinking, carousing, whatever, being sent to the emergency room for
usually as soon as the cops are called, that's usually the first sign that it's time for you to go home.
Right. But in most cases, it doesn't go as smoothly as you think, you know, and I had a real tough one, you know, sending students back, you start to question your decisions, you know, and it's they're all well intended. You're thinking this is educating the child, giving them a hard lesson that they need, and they violated a contract.
Right.
But then you think, is this my place? Should we just ride it out and get them back home and let their parents do their work? So these are tough. I mean, I still think about them, and those are all difficult decisions. And as I matured as a teacher, in some ways, and at least in one case, I probably could have finessed it a little bit better.
Mm.
And that, so you grow into that role, I think, and you can anticipate problems, and usually that's the better work rather than having to deal with things.
Well, same thing. You said the two of us dealing with a kid who drank and did all sorts of things on my own. Well, not on my own, with my more current compadre. We had to deal with questions of prejudice that almost sent a kid home. And so it's one of those things where it's part of that responsibility that you talked about earlier that you sign up for. People look at it and say, "Oh, you get a free trip to Germany." I said, "Yeah, but I pay for it. I pay for it because of worry. I pay for it because of having to make decisions. And yes, I get a free trip. And there's something to be said for that. But at the same time, we endure a lot and we take on a lot to make sure that those things go well. And when they go well, it seems like we're not really working at all.
It's the best experience ever. And then you get a call and you pick it up and you hear, "Steve, we have a problem."
And then all of a sudden, all your plans are gone. And so
you pull out the list of all the students and think, okay, which one is it? And usually you know which one before it starts. I mean, we've taken students to Germany where our colleagues back home, I thought, "You're going to do what?" And they laughed, literally laughed at us. And so we're taking chances, but we're also betting on the kids to, exceed. And most of the time they do.
And rise to the occasion.
Yeah, that's right.
And we not only see them rise to the occasion from kind of an educational and enlightenment sort of thing, but we also see, as we kind of referred to earlier, kind of a confidence level. We've seen kids become leaders. We've seen kids, take charge when they see someone doing something wrong, or when they see that the group needs something. We've seen kids step up, and it's one of those things where perhaps prior to, the kid would not have done that. I don't know. I mean, but it is certainly yet another advantage of the experiences that this kind of exchange can engender. And it's part of the reason why I assume that we do it is because, there certainly is a self-interested kind of quality to it, but there's also the notion of what we're giving, because I can sit here and teach history all day long within 4 cinder block walls, and tell them about this, that, or the other. It's another thing to be there. It's another thing to walk those steps. It's another thing to see the effect of historical movement or historical events. Then it becomes a little bit more real to the kid who's open to it. And like I said, the kids who typically join these kind of exchanges are ones that are the kind who might open themselves to those type of experiences. And I think that that's where, at the end of the day, you sit there and you say to yourself, "That was pretty cool."
Absolutely. I think it's one of the things I wish I had been more present in, because you often are worried while you're traveling, and it's a little bit stressful when you have students. But there were some great teaching moments. I mean, some of our best teaching happened there, even with our own group, because we met with our own students for an hour every day, and suddenly we're answering questions about German culture that are real questions, not the type of question you get in the classroom. And they're telling stories, and they're getting to know each other. And these are kids who probably, come from very different groups with our own students, and they meld. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to really teach. In some ways, I can't imagine having taught German, for 20 years and not done that type of a program.
It's seamless.
Yeah.
It's a natural extension of your curriculum is to send some kiddos in that direction.
But there are so many foreign language teachers. I mean, we're talking about German here, but Spanish teachers, French teachers, whatever, that offer trips, occasionally, but they're more tour based, where they get to go to Paris and Rome and these places, which is wonderful, but it's all staying in hotels. And maybe if we can advocate for anything, it's the homestay model, in any language. And it takes a different kind of a teacher, I think, to do that,
and a different kind of student to do that.
Right, but it's more economical. I mean, we're going to Germany for 3 weeks, and the price is relatively low. We get a nice group flight, and then they're staying in families, which means that they don't have that many, very few expenses once they're there. I mean, basically, they bring money for what they want to bring back. So it's economical, and we've kind of made the case that there's a different type of learning involved. And as a chaperone, you get a lot of breaks because you are away from your students. So that part is, you're not being a tour guide 24/7.
And I think, nothing against the 5 cities or 5 countries in 1 week sort of excursion. But it is hard to connect or to have the kind of deep learning experience when you're not there long enough to learn, or certainly not to have any type of introspection about what you're doing. And I think the idea that when you do the hotel jaunt and the hotel hop from one major city to the other, you're constantly surrounded, the kids are, by themselves, by each other. Mm-hmm. And so the reflection is not as deep because, there's still that dynamic of not wanting to come across, in a certain way with your peers. But then when you get to go to a home now, and you get to stay in one particular area, you have the time for the introspection, because now you're sitting around a dinner table, and you're sitting around a dinner table from people that you do not know very well,
who don't necessarily speak English. I mean, we often assume that, they know English, but that may not be the case.
And so I think because of that, that's why our kind of trips are perhaps the ones more closely aligned to maybe the original purpose that these trips were designed to serve. When the first teacher thought, wouldn't it be great if we took our kids to fill in the blank? And I think our idea is perhaps closer to a truer, more altruistic kind of adventure and what we want our kids to get out of it, and it's good, from the German point of view, it's good because unfortunately in a history class, kids only get usually one introduction to Germany, and it's not a good one.
Right.
And so, and so once you're able, and it's ridiculous really, to think that something that happened 70 years ago, and I'm speaking as a Jew. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that have a stake in making sure that that's not forgotten, and it should not be forgotten, but it should not be the only thing remembered, that there are other things that are a part of that culture. Lord knows we've got skeletons in our closet. So it doesn't stand to reason that we should hold something against another group of people, especially people who had nothing to do with it. And so to be able to get students to kind of step away from that image and go towards a more modern image, or to consider a more historical one prior to all that, I think that that's also kind of an added benefit. Now, you talked about being present, being in the moment. This goes to a question that you and I have struggled with. Because as last year, I bought an iPhone.
You were being really serious there. And
I am being serious because this is serious business.
Okay.
I didn't want any part of the iPhone. I had a dumb phone. I was quite happy with
a little flip phone.
Yeah, it was a little flip phone. I had a keyboard that I could text stuff in it, but other than that, it was just a phone. Then I go into a locale, a business who specializes supposedly in all sorts of phones. And I said, I want a newer version of this phone. those teenagers behind the counter laughed at me.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? You'd literally find that in an antique store.
Yeah, and that's where I should have gone. I should have gone to an antique store. But I ended up I felt forced into an iPhone. Now, before when I had the dumb phone, my wife's insistence that I call on a regular basis or something or another was always mitigated by the fact that I'm sorry, honey, I just don't have the technology. Now I have the technology. Now I have the technology. I feel that the pressure will be greater to do FaceTime with my wife and with my daughter at a time when my focus should be on the world around me, the experiences around me, the joy around me. It's like when those kids graduate from high school and they come back the next August to say, we're back. And I said, I would always tell them, I can't miss you until you leave. And so there's something he said for simply saying, hey, listen, I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. Here's my flight information. Please meet me at the airport and we'll talk all about it. But now I'm afraid that I'm going to feel compelled to do this.
You're a terrible person.
I need your help.
You're just a terrible person. I mean, they want to keep track of you. They want to be part of you. If you were really above board and trying to think about other people's welfare, you turn on the notification, the GPS tracker. So you have that. So when I'm in Freiburg or we go to Switzerland or something, they'll get to see that little thing with your initial and you're now up in the mountains. Here's Ross. Oh, okay. That's fun. Where's Ross?
The tracking device on my iPhone was turned off about 2 minutes after I received it.
You tried to block your wife from the phone.
I'm not trying to block my wife. That would be bad. If I was trying to block my wife.
Well, you're not going to speak to your daughter for 11 days. I mean,
she's not going to miss me. She's going to be at her grandparents' with pools and lakes and probably an abundance of snow cones and ice cream cones. She's not going to miss me one iota. She probably won't even know I'm gone. I'll probably show up and say, "Oh, I thought you were in the other room," and that'll be my daughter.
Yeah, for us, it was always about what I brought back. It was always about the candy because I would always have a budget. I still do of 40 euros, which brings a lot of candy. And so I fill the suitcase and so it's not about we missed you. It says, where's our candy?
Well, we all have our crosses we must bear. And so we'll see how we do. And maybe we'll bring this up in a few days when we record our first episode live from Germany or Switzerland or Liechtenstein.
And that, I have to say, for the record, you're picking one of the smallest countries. You can walk across it in about a half hour because you want to add that.
Seems a bit of an exaggeration.
Well, but you do this with states too. You want to just add that to your list. And so I consider Liechtenstein adding to the list. We just happen to be here on our way to Switzerland. Let's stop for a night. I cannot
believe you're going to take my wife's side on this stuff. I don't collect states. You know what I collect, Steve? I collect experiences. Oh, I collect moments in time that will not soon be forgotten. You perhaps can boil down all your travel to simply another notch on the ledger. Not me, my friend.
No. Because the rule is that you have to spend a night.
Yes.
Have a meal. And then you can put it on the list. And that's about what we're doing. That's a little suspicious.
It's on the way.
It doesn't have to be. There are lots of ways.
It does have to be. It's on the way between Freiburg and where we're going in Switzerland. Liechtenstein is on the way.
I think the witness is breaking down now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fine. All right. It's enough of this crap. We'll pick this up later. Probably from Liechtenstein.
We'll probably start right with that topic.
All right. So until we meet again tomorrow at the airport.
Yeah, that's it. We'll say Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Müller.
Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.